1. Our landlord sucks. I know, not an original experience, but this is one of the few instances so far where we've been able to get a one-up on him. So I thought I'd share. I'm currently living in a major city with 2 friends. We're all students, so money is tight, of course. We moved into this place a little over 9 months ago, and so far had constant problems with mold, damp, broken appliances, etc. That's a whole other story, but just know that this happened amidst a lot of other stuff, hence our frustration. All the doors in our place are wood with little silver handles. They each have a cover you can remove to see all the screws keeping the door handles in place. The doors were also swelling like crazy due to how damp our flat was, and half of them no longer fit the door frames. Some wouldn't close all the way, others you would have to slam shut. My flatmate's bedroom door was one of those slammable ones. One day, my flatmate got out of bed and tried to leave his room, only to find his door was totally flaccid. Like he would push it down and nothing would happen. He was totally trapped in his room. The only way he ended up escaping was by using some skate tools he had in his room at the time and totally removing the handle from the door. We realized afterwards that the handle only had 1 out of 6 needed screws to keep it in place, so it had totally detached from the inner mechanism, essentially locking the door permanently. Whatever, we thought, we reported the broken door to our useless letting agency and moved on, just never shutting my flatmate's door all the way and eventually taking the handle off entirely and just using the hole left behind to pull the door open when needed. After this incident, we went around and checked all the handles. We realized that my bedroom door and my other flatmates had a different style of handle than the rest, but absolutely none of them had the correct number of screws. They all either had 1 or 2 out of 6, and mine and hers had 1 out of 4. Clearly the landlord hadn't bothered to install them properly, or they were just so old they were falling apart. Months passed, the first door stayed broken, and we were all placing bets on which one would go next. Our landlord was giving us the runaround as per usual, and we were still dealing with all the other issues going on. So my flatmate's broken bedroom door became sort of a side issue. It was annoying having a door with no handle, and it was also a major fire hazard, but what could we do? There was no way for us, a couple of inexperienced teenagers, to refit the mechanisms and the handles by ourselves, we considered it. Especially since the hole where it was supposed to sit was super torn up. Also, not our job. Anyways, like I said, it's a few months down the line and another handle goes. This time it's the bathroom. Unlike my flatmate's bedroom, this one broke so that if you closed it from the inside, you could open it again, but if you were outside, you couldn't get back in. You also couldn't lock it. Again, we report it, and just don't close the bathroom door when no one is in it. Until my flatmate was running a bath with the door open, of course, and the steam was coming out into the hallway. We have a temperamental fire alarm, so my other one says, "Hey, watch the steam," and without thinking he shuts the door. No one is in the bathroom. My other flatmate, his girlfriend, says, "Did you just close the bathroom door?" Realizing what he's done, he curses. So, now we have a locked door scenario with a timer. Plus, if we don't get this door open in the next couple of minutes, we are going to start flooding our bathroom. We all panic, some chaos ensues, and luckily, my flatmate is able to remove the handle, push the mechanism through, dislodge the other handle, and bust the door open. No flooding, thank God. But now we are really angry. We nearly ruined our bathroom and possibly affected the people living below us because our landlord is a lazy prick and didn't install his door handles correctly. The next day, I call up our letting agent and essentially demand she send out a contractor to replace the now 2 broken door handles. Bear in mind, one of them has been broken for maybe 3 or 4 months at this point. She apologizes for the delay and says she'll get back to me. We wait a couple of days, and she comes back with an email essentially saying, The landlord doesn't want to pay for a contractor to replace the door handles because he thinks it's your fault they broke. Here's an invoice for the repairs. It's £350 to replace the 2 door handles. I remember seething. £350 for 2 handles? And he wanted us to pay it. Not happening. Revenge time. I go around our house, taking a very thorough video of every single door handle. I take great care to show how poorly they're installed, all the missing screws, and how they barely fit into their holes, how weak some of them are, etc., and I send it off to our letting agent with a long email detailing how the 2 broken handles are very clearly the result of wear and tear, and we refuse to pay for their replacements. Eventually, she gets back to us and agrees that the video indeed proves the handles are the landlord's responsibility, and she's going to make him replace every single one, at his own expense, instead of just the 2 that are broken. Oh, and she's going to make sure that he uses the contractor he quoted us, since he claimed it was the only one he trusted. Doing the math? That's 6 door handles at £175 each, totaling £1,050 to replace them all. If he had just replaced the 2 that were broken, or even just found a less ridiculous contractor that quoted far less, he could have saved himself hundreds of pounds. But because he's lazy, stingy, and a dickhead, he ended up forking over way more than he needed to, and we got all shiny new door handles. 2. It's probably not the best way to start a story with a preface about how you were a really good kid. But it is true, I was. Although I was a kid that got into a lot of mischief. Kind of like a Dennis the Menace kind of kid. I was raised in foster care with my 2 younger brothers until I was 8, and then was adopted by a great set of parents. But I say this to illustrate that I have always had a different type of relationship with adults. I didn't trust them. I always showed respect to adults, but if I lost respect, then that was it. I just had no time for you. Which was a great mentality to have at school. This story starts in 6th grade, in gym class. I had the very popular gym teacher that everyone thought was the coolest. So as a kid, I thought it was sweet that I got him as a gym teacher. Pretty quickly, I learned I wasn't a huge fan of him. I have always been pretty good at sports, played basketball, soccer, and baseball, so he right off the bat liked me. But for the kids that weren't the type to enjoy sports, he just wasn't that cool too. Getting after them for not trying hard enough or not running fast enough. Watching it just rubbed me the wrong way. But what broke the camel's back was one day, we were supposed to go outside to play kickball. We went to the field and they were mowing. We headed back to the gym, and as soon as we got in, he threw the big bag of stuff across the gym and yelled a few choice words. He was visibly angry and sharing it. I know there could have been a lot of stuff going on with him, but I'm in the 6th grade, and I'm watching a grown man, someone who is supposed to be watching over us kids, get angry over something that seems so silly. So from that moment I was just uncaring about that class and that teacher. I instead started goofing off. I just didn't care. And he started getting after me and giving me detentions often. All of that stuff teachers do when they have a student they didn't like. Which was later confirmed at parent-teacher conferences. Now the pettiness. When you get detention in gym, you have to sit in the locker room for 30 minutes after school. Sometimes he would give me things I had to do, usually cleaning or folding towels, and at 30 minutes he would dismiss you. A few times he would just leave and not tell me, and after waiting for an hour I would just leave. I didn't respect him, but still wanted to follow the rules. So, I'm sitting in the locker room for detention. He walks in pushing this large cart of towels and tells me I can't leave until all these are folded and put into the towel closet. Then he leaves. There were hundreds of towels. It was going to take me at least an hour to fold them. I push the cart over to the towel closet and start folding. I make a stack of towels, across and up, and then realize if I make a wall of towels in front, then throw all the unfolded towels behind them, then just do a layer of folded towels on top, it would look like I did them all. So that's what I did. I finished the whole cart in like 15 minutes. then sat down on the bench, waiting to finish up the remaining time in my detention. 5 minutes to go, backpack on, watching the clock. Then the other gym teacher comes in and asks me what I am doing here. I tell him that I am finishing detention. He says good, then drops a huge stack of papers in front of me and says, "Staple these together and put them on my desk before you leave," and then walks out. I had 5 stacks of 100 papers in front of me, and I had to take one from each pile and staple it into a packet. Again, this was going to take forever. I start stapling, taking one sheet off each pile, straightening them up, putting a staple on the side, and then stacking them. Did about 10, and knew it was going to take forever. Annoyed, I started to just take 5 from the same pile and staple them, then started stapling some in the middle, then flipped pages upside down and back to back. Some I stapled completely shut. I just went crazy with the stapler, finished the entire stack, went and flopped them on his desk and left. In my head, that was that. That definitely was not that. The next day at the gym, my teacher hollers my name as he walks into the gym, yells to follow him. We walk into the locker room and the other gym teacher is sitting at his desk with the stacks of paper in front of him. My teacher starts berating me about what I had just done, how disrespectful I am towards the school and testing, being a slacker, blah blah. All I could think was that I was stoked he didn't notice the towels. After he finishes, he then gives me 5 detentions. An important note, these tests weren't even for his classes. They were for the other teachers. He just wanted an excuse to yell at me, I guess. I then turned around to the other gym teacher. I start by apologizing, saying, "I'm sorry if I messed up his class." He calmly sits there, chuckles, and says, "My students want me to thank you." He then told me since my teacher gave me 5 detentions, he would have to match that. I liked that guy. I wish he was my teacher. Needless to say, I never got along with my gym teacher, and was glad to get out of his class. Also, I am aware that I am not the good guy in this. And another fun fact, at my school, 5 detentions equals 1 DR, discipline referral, which equals 6 hours of Saturday school. My parents were called, and my dad was told that they had never had a kid get more detentions and DRs in one day before, which I thought was cool. 3. In the mid-1980s, I was working at a warehouse, working at my own fledgling business, and trying to finish my master's. I was in my last semester, basically just perfecting and submitting my thesis. My university was a state, third-tier, regional, industry-oriented commuter institution with visions of grandeur. It belatedly decided it needed a real computer science department, and the quickest way to get it was by exploiting other departments and existing students. Step 1 was expelling the English department from the building the university had gotten built for it just a few years prior, by whining to the legislature about how unnecessary it was to the department. Then suddenly English could go back and bunk with the history and political science departments, as it had to start. Next, the university declared that all degree plans were retroactively required to include a 3-credit introduction to computers course. This was projected to give the fledgling computer science department an income stream of almost $1 million over 2 years, in addition to whatever they could wheedle out from the legislature, donors, industry, partners, etc. The new department was quickly fitted out with the most advanced computer system they could afford. A cutting-edge VAX server was ensconced in glass on the 2nd floor, constantly surrounded by its votives. Non-CS majors were only tolerated on the floor if they had business there or knew enough to tell the newly self-important Malvin types to get lost. I liked coming to see how things were put together, and annoyed a couple by telling them to try making me leave. None tried. As for classes, they were a joke of a joke. The department had a fraction of the competent instructors they needed. The classroom sections were standing room only, and basically any CS grad student was qualified to be an instructor. I bought my first PC in 1979, so I knew how to put things together and write a little BASIC. I wound up helping my instructor grade her own tests in exchange for an A-. I'm not greedy. The computer illiterate students dropped by the hundreds. No problem, the department kept their fees and they had to do it again. And again. I was graduating a semester late, had my work and private life disrupted, and got to pay an additional semester's worth of tuition fees, all to take a course that not only I didn't need, but that I had to help implement. I was not happy. The lab portion of the course required students to go to the general computer lab, upload a basic program they wrote, execute it, and submit a hard copy to the instructor as a final exam. The general computer lab was a slapdash assemblage of about 50 old terminals, some literally held shut with electrical tape, connected to an ancient wheezing server with some of the attached peripherals still using tape. 8 equally dot matrix printers were provided to meet the needs of all non-CS major students. I asked to print my submission on my own home printer, as I planned to write it there anyway. Not allowed. My computer might not process BASIC correctly. I could make it use the exact sub-version of BASIC, just tell me what it is. Not allowed. So, having my graduation delayed, my life disrupted, my pocket picked to take a course that taught me nothing just so the CS department could get more funding was not enough. I now had to go to the lab, wait for hours to get a terminal, spend 2 minutes uploading my program, and then wait another couple of hours for a scrap of paper with the result. I decided to go on a Sunday morning, figuring most potential competitors would be sleeping in or at church. It's the South. The lines were long, but not crazy long. The sign-in sheet still had spaces, so I figured it was as good as it gets. The waiting room was packed, loud, talking bad 80s music, and a cloud of cigarette smoke wafted out. I signed in, then looked around. Across the hall, the CS Majors Only Lab featured the Vax in its glass-encased glory, a votive sitting by the entrance to keep out the hoi polloi. In the hall, 3 CS Majors sat at a long table monitoring the labs. There was an empty chair in front of it, at the edge by the wall. I asked if I could sit there and read while waiting for my name to be called. A guy looked up and said, "Yeah, sure." About 15 minutes later, there was a shift change. The new monitors were led by a scrawny, pimply, snivel-lipped little weasel with bad breath, who'd tried to kick me off the floor before.
"Get out of here,"
he yipped. "Excuse me," I replied, looking up from my book.
"You heard me. Get out of here."
Bowing out his caved-in chest. "I'm just sitting here reading. The guy who was just here said it was fine."
"Well, I say it's not fine, so move,"
he said. He started moving towards me, stopping short when I got up. "I'm sorry. Who are you exactly?" I looked him in the eye. He didn't like eye contact. He gulped, but held his ground.
"I'm the senior lab monitor, and I'm telling you to move now."
I kept looking him in the eye. He literally flinched. I said, "Well, we're just going to have to agree to disagree about that." Sat back down and opened my book. He stood there, huffing and puffing, then stalked off with a stick up his butt. A few minutes later, he returned with a professor who, in lieu of an introduction, started yelling at me.
"Who do you think you are? You can't threaten a lab monitor."
He looked and behaved like an older version of the guy who'd fetched him. "I didn't threaten anybody. I've been sitting here reading a book." Then this guy started yelping about me having to move.
"Yelping? Yelping? Who do you think you are? These students give up their free time to monitor the lab. You need to graduate. You will not disrespect them."
"I'm just sitting here."
"I'm going to make this easy on you," he sneered.
He'd worked up a sweat already. It beaded on his forehead.
"You get up right now and go into the waiting room where you belong, or you're banned from this lab permanently. Got it?"
No lab meant no course credit, which meant no masters. I had no choice. "Fine," I said, picking up my book. Snivel Lips had the nastiest screw-you smirk. The professor, half blocking my way, said I also had to apologize. I was several inches taller and 50 pounds heavier. I've been told when I become very angry, I get quiet. My eyes turn black and my face turns to stone. I have not seen it, but he did. Looking him in his beady, now rapidly blinking eyes, I said very quietly, "I don't believe I will." He gulped, like his toady had a few minutes earlier. Then he stepped aside.
"I better not see you on this floor again,"
he said, walking away. I went into the waiting room. After another hour of waiting, my turn into terminal came. You got 30 minutes. I signed in, typed in my program, ran, and then executed it. I still had 25 minutes. I logged out and sat there. I realized I was shaking with rage. Not only had these people used me as a cash cow, wasted tens of hours of my time, delayed my graduation by 3 months, cost me hundreds of dollars, disrespected me over and over again, but now they had threatened to keep me from graduating for no reason at all, just because they thought they could get away with it. I wanted a way to teach them that they couldn't, at least not without some blowback. At the beginning of the classroom portion of the course, a totally computer-illiterate classmate sitting next to me was freaking out.
"I don't know anything about computers,"
he exclaimed with panicked eyes. I responded, "It's not really that hard, you just need to learn a few code words and write a simple program."
"How come you know this?"
he asked, still freaking out. "Because I have a hobby machine at home. Just me calling it a machine seemed to make me a tech whiz in his eyes."
"I don't have time to get help from the instructor. The wait is over an hour."
He got more panicked. I said, "Tell you what, give me your password." Everyone had been issued one at the start of the course. "I'll look at what you've got and help you fix any problems." He agreed to this, but dropped the class the next day. I still had his password. An idea came to me. I tried to log in with his password. It was still valid, so I wrote a 2-line basic program. 10, print, the computer department is a disgrace. 20, go to 10. I executed the program, logged out, and left the lab. By then, my actual program had been executed and printed, and I got the result without comment from the non-jerk printer room monitor. Snivel-Lips was gone. The current monitors either didn't know what had happened or didn't care. I put my program in the instructor's mailbox and left that building for the last time. My assumption was that the little endless loop program I'd uploaded would execute, and maybe a couple of pages of paper with my message on it would spew from a printer until somebody noticed and shut it off. PettyRevenge taken. Petty point made. That wasn't how it turned out. I learned what actually happened from a CS major a couple of years later. I met her in a club. We started talking, and the topic turned to the computer lab. I told her how on my last day I left a little message to let them know some students were a tad irked by their poor treatment. I thought she'd see it as a silly prank. She didn't. She stared at me for a moment and then said, "That was you? Do you have any idea what you did?" I was shocked. What I did? I thought I made a printer spew out a few pages with that message. She was visibly angry. "No, that's not what you did. What you did was crash the whole network. It took 2 days to bring it back up." How could that be? "Jesus, you clueless idiot," she said, almost spitting her words. "The machine executed the uploaded programs and stored the results, queuing them to print in the order received." For some reason, her calling them machines just like I did freaked me out, like it had my classmate. Since your program was an endless loop, the results overflowed the memory of the old server that was controlling the general lab, and since the servers were connected, it then jumped over to the brand new VAX. She practically yelled those last words. People started to look over. She caught her breath and lowered her voice some. "Your prank overflowed its memory too, making it crash. Every terminal in the whole building went blank. People lost whatever they were working on but hadn't stored, and the manufacturer had to send a text to fix the mess." My mind reeled, but I just wanted to make a statement. I didn't want to hurt anybody. "Well, you hurt a lot of people, plus the department was never the same. People assumed an insider did it. They figured only a CS major would know how to do that." Really? Know how to write and upload a 2-line prank program written in BASIC? People stopped trusting each other. New security protocols were established. Everything got harder to do. She poked me in the chest. And it turns out it was all because you got butthurt when somebody talked mean to you. And then she cursed at me, slapped me across the face, and got up and left. 4. This happened a few years ago. I basically did direct support for disabled clients. To picture what that's like, I'd go to the house and help supervise a client with tasks like cooking and cleaning, taking them to appointments, bringing them grocery shopping, that sort of stuff. All client directed. My job wasn't to do the stuff for them, just help them do it themselves. The number of hours I could spend helping per week depended on what their insurance felt like paying for. And the stipulation was that I had to be helping the client at all times, so they couldn't just send me on errands without participating. There was one entitled lady who tried to break this frequently. I always remained professional and explained that I was there to help with living tasks. But she always tried pushing to see what she could get away with. For example, "Oh, I just need you to babysit my nephew for me today." Sorry, lady, my duties are attached to the client, and your nephew isn't the client. She'd get huffy, but usually drop it. At the end of each week, we'd log my hours and both sign the form to submit it to the company. I usually left the form on her kitchen table. When I left the house, she was the one who would send it in. Well, one day she asked me to watch her nephew, and I went into the well-rehearsed spiel about my job duties again. She wasn't happy, I refused, but accepted it as usual. It was Friday already, and the form was due, but for once she had plans and was leaving the house first. She was okay with me locking up after her. On my way out, I went to sign the form and noticed that she'd filled out my hours for the day incorrectly. She put the end of my shift at about an hour earlier. I figured it was an honest mistake and fixed it before signing, and went home without a second thought. Guys, a few hours later I got an explosion of angry texts. She was ranting and calling me every name in the book for changing the hours. She matter-of-factly informed me that since I didn't obey her request, watching her nephew at the end of the shift, I wasn't getting paid for that hour. I learned in an angry flurry of messages that apparently this had been going on for a while. Any time I didn't do her extra demands, it didn't count as part of the shift. Personally, I never noticed it since it only ever amounted to about an hour or so per week. And I also didn't realize that she'd alter the log after I'd left. I'm not sure if she didn't realize it was basically a written confession. Here's a revenge. I ended up calling my company to ask how to proceed. My supervisor took this very seriously, explaining that my company was legally obligated to give me my pay as per the labor board. I live in the US. They'd also be contacting the insurance company to explain the discrepancy, since the amount of hours paid to the employee was greater than the amount of hours the insurance company allotted to the client. I kind of laughed it off, said it was only an hour and I didn't care about making waves over 1 hour, literally only $12. But apparently her insurance didn't appreciate her saying she was getting less hours in order to get a little extra free help. While my company was billing her insurance more than they should in order to pay me, I asked what happens now, and my supervisor said they'd take care of everything, and they were dropping her as a client and would reimburse me the hour. I wish the story had an exciting end, but all I know is she was permanently blacklisted from services. I'm not sure if the insurance company went after her legally, or how they handle things like fraud and/or cheating the system. I'm assuming there was some sort of recourse. All of this because she changed 1 hour I noticed by pure chance. I got my additional $12 in the mail a week later. Hellfreezer's note, you mention she did this frequently. So I'm confused as to why you only got $12. It sounds like you got screwed somewhere along the way here. I'd contact my employer if I were you. You have a written confession where she admits to doing it on a regular basis, so you just make an estimate of all the times that she's messed with it, or they'll have the actual timesheet, so they'll be able to see when the number has been altered. It should be obvious that it's been gone over more than once. I'm glad you got the $12 for that week, but you're owed probably several weeks. $12 may not sound like much, but say she did it 10, 20 times. Think of what you could do with that money. Approach it politely, approach it diplomatically, but I hope it works out for you and you get paid. 5. I worked for a popular fast food company. I won't say the name, but it can be recognized by the sound of a single bong in its jingle. Anyway, we are required to wear company brand t-shirts and must display the company logo on our bodies somewhere. Enter morning shift boss. I almost never see anybody from morning shift, as I was either evening or closing. But due to layoffs, we needed a closing manager. He is incredibly nitpicky and hypocritical, and only invokes the rules when it's convenient for him. Anyway, my attire that never got any write-ups or talks was a company shirt, company hat, an apron, and jeans. Morning shift boss walks up to me and talks to me about the dress code and my violations. Oh my. Apparently, the rim of the shirt was too low. My apron wasn't allowed to have pockets. But the thing that really set him off was my jeans. He said I can't have them cuffed, and I either have to cut them to size or get new jeans that fit. I tried to explain to him that I have very wide hips and jeans of my waist size are usually meant for big and tall people, and I couldn't find any jeans anywhere that had my length. He said, "Just cut them then." Later that week, he made everyone sign a pamphlet that basically says, "I understand the dress code and will follow it or face repercussions." Fortunately, this pamphlet had the company dress code written in the text. Everyone just signed their name and moved on, but I took the pamphlet into the back office and took the time to read the whole thing. My boss came in and wondered why I wasn't working. I told him, "My father told me to never sign things without reading the terms first."
"Just sign it,"
he replied. "I will. I just want to know what I'm signing my soul over first is all." I'm guessing he thought what I said was funny as he chuckled and walked away. But then I saw it, my saving grace. Only dark blue denim, black jeans, or black pants solid in color are approved to wear as your company uniform. Pants and jeans should not touch the ground, have holes, fading, embellishments, or light washes. That's everything the dress code said about jeans. It said nothing that I wasn't allowed to cuff them. And it did say I have to wear a company apron too, which don't have pockets. But it never said I can't wear more than one apron. I proudly signed the pamphlet saying I fully understand the dress code, and I saw that my boss was the first person to sign it too. The next day I came to work with my jeans cuffed, my company apron on, but I wore it backwards and my usual apron on regularly. And I did tuck my shirt in, as that was dress code. A few coworkers wondered why I had 2 aprons and still cuffed my jeans. I just told them, everything I'm wearing is to the letter up to dress code. When my boss finally called me into the office and said I would receive a write-up for insubordination and dress code violation, I told him, "Nuh-uh," with a cheeky finger wag. "Everything I'm wearing is up to dress code. I thought you knew that. You signed it too. I assume you took the time to read the terms of the dress code too?" He got the pamphlet out and started reading the terms, and I could see him looking at my jeans, and back at the pamphlet, then back at me, then my apron, then the paper again. "Is there anything that violates the dress code?" "No," he replied. "Well, then a write-up would be unnecessary then for me. But I would like to point out that the dress code specifically prohibits holes in attire. And I think I see a hole right there on your shirt. And also it says pants cannot touch the floor, and your pants are down by your heels, sir. I can see some dirt and a stray piece of lettuce on the rim of your pant leg." He looked and saw, then shimmied his pants higher up to his belly button. "You know, if they're too long, you can just cut them off." And then I promptly left, felt pretty proud of myself after that. My boss never came to me about dress code after that. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Revenge is Ice Cream, episode 357. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, please do boop the like button and share the video with friends and family. If you'd like early access to these videos, that's easy enough to do. You get that by supporting me on my Patreon page, which is linked for you in the description. You'll also find links in the description to the Hellfreezer merchandise store on Teespring, as well as a link to the Hellfreezer Discord. If you really like today's video, you can leave a tip by clicking on the heart with a $sign underneath. But you don't have to do that. You don't have to do any of that, although it is very much appreciated and does help keep me going. Okay. No other bits and bobs today, so let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is, would you rather have wings like an angel's that allowed you to fly, or panther legs that allowed you to run swiftly across the land? Personally, I think I'd rather have the wings because I'd like to be able to fly, although they might get a little bit cumbersome here and there. Maybe we could do the Lucifer TV show thing where you can put them away when you're not using them. Otherwise, it would be a bit awkward. Why don't you let me know what you think in a comment below? And before we go, we'll have the answer of the day from a previous video. And this question was in relation to, do you think of your ears as part of your face or your head? And today's answer comes from Kelpie Inkpot. No, I think they're part of my head. Although when police make a suspect sketch of the person's face, the ears are drawn in a very important part of the description of the criminal for identification. That's true, but they do also include things like hair and glasses as well, which I guess are technically, they come with the face if you're wearing them, but they're not really part of the face. More like face adjacent. I feel like that should be the name of a TV show. Possibly about a detective who has face blindness, so they have to rely on other clues to identify the suspects. Nobody steal that. I'm about to become a billionaire. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. If you don't see me next week, I've become a billionaire. If you do, no one was interested. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.